When the 2024 season began, I don't think a lot of people had Oregon, Illinois as one of the biggest games in the Big Ten. These are two teams that definitely had the potential to be successful so far, and they have not disappointed. These are two teams that have been on different paths. Oregon obviously got off to a rocky start, but has figured things out. Beat Ohio State 2 weeks ago and absolutely thumped Purdue to kind of ease some concerns that maybe a top five team going to Purdue would be in trouble, but they have really ramped things up over the last couple weeks. Illinois is a team that has been really fun to watch as well. I think that they have exceeded expectations, and now they have to face an Oregon team that will give them their toughest challenge yet. I think when you look at these two teams, you see the potential to score lots of points. And I think that both of them have the capability of making explosive plays. But I think Oregon obviously is a little bit more equipped to do that. But the question is, can the Ducks get off to a fast start? That's been one of the keys for this team early. And it's not even necessarily getting points on the board. Obviously, that's part of it, but it's moving the ball efficiently down the field. And obviously, you saw that against Ohio State. You saw Will Stein calling a really good game, and he's going to have to do that against an Illinois defense that is very good. Now, Illinois is less, I would say, equipped to score a ton of points, but they're not incapable of it. You saw that against Purdue, scored 50 points against Purdue, so they're very capable of doing that. It's just on a regular, consistent basis, they are not designed to do that, and that's okay. You rely on that, that traditional Big Ten pace, and you are expecting to slow this game down maybe a little bit. But again, they have the ability to score. It's just a matter of can the offense keep up? If Oregon is having its way with Illinois' defense and finding ways to put the points on the scoreboard quickly, does Illinois have what it takes to keep up in this game? That's going to be a big question and one that probably dictates the game. The biggest matchup for me is going to be Oregon's offensive line against Illinois' defensive line. If you have not watched Illinois' defense so far this year, you are missing out. That is a very underrated group, a group that gave Michigan a run for its money and made life very difficult for the Wolverines. It's a big reason why they beat Michigan 21-7 this past weekend. Gabe Jacobs is one of the more exciting players that most people don't really talk about. Seth Coleman is also in that group. The secondary is really fun. I think that that's going to be a really interesting group to watch in this game. The line right now is Oregon 21 and a half. I don't know why that feels so disrespectful, but that's going to be something to watch. That's to put an Illinois team as a 21 and a half point underdog, it's almost feels wrong. It just feels like that shouldn't be the case because of how well this team has played at times. But again, Oregon is figuring things out. So maybe that's has to do a lot with it. And maybe that's where this is headed. The impact players for Illinois, we talked about Gabe Jacobs. Again, if you do not know who he is, if you have not watched his film, he's really fun to watch. Illinois likes to use him in a multitude of ways. They like to line him up, obviously, on the edge. They will move him inside. They even put him up straight up as like a nose guard on the center against Michigan. They'll drop him back in coverage. He's really fun to watch, and he's disruptive. 7.5 tackles for loss, 5.5 sacks. The defense is really exciting. Matthew Bailey, Xavier Scott, Miles Scott. That secondary is really fun. We talked about Seth Coleman as well. The offense is where this is going to get interesting. Luke Altmaier has one of his toughest challenges yet. Facing this Oregon defense is going to be difficult because their defensive line is really good. It's really deep. They also have a ton of talent everywhere. So you're going to have to find ways to not turn over the football, which I think he's done a pretty good job of so far this year. And you're going to have to get the ball to your playmakers. Pat Bryant and Zachary Franklin have been really fun for this Illinois offense. They are very underrated within the Big Ten circles. They're extremely underrated within the college football world. And that's going to be a group that has to step up in a big way. That's a group that needs to play at a high level if they want to win this football game. Oregon is a tough team to beat, but Illinois definitely has the ability to do it. That's why I feel like 21 and a half feels like it's super high unless there's something that we don't know. And as I'm recording this right now, I don't know if there's a big time player not playing for Illinois yet. I don't really know what that is, but that number feels like it's high. Now, when you go to the impact players for Oregon, it's kind of easy to see how this game could get out of hand, but that's assuming that you're going to play at a high level, and Illinois struggles to slow you down. Dylan Gabriel is going to be the leader of that offense as usual. 2,098 yards passing, 15 touchdowns. We saw a little bit of his legs more in the Ohio State game. That's still something that I think they're kind of holding back and not using as much until they absolutely need to. And we saw that against Ohio State. Jordan James is one of the more underrated running backs in college football. I think that everyone's paying attention to everyone else on Oregon. Jordan James replacing Bucky Irving was going to be a talking point coming into this year, and he has done a really good job. He continues to fly under the radar. The offensive line injuries have obviously affected that, but that's a guy who definitely deserves more credit than he's getting. Evan Stewart is starting to break out. We've seen him thrive over the last couple of games. He has been a more impact player lately, which is good because we've been waiting for him to have that game all season, and he finally did that. He finally showed us what he's capable of doing, and that was really exciting. Eric Harmon's been an absolute stud. The loss of Jordan Birch to injury obviously was going to be tough right before the Ohio State game, but Mateo Uiagalelei has stepped up in a big way. He has been really fun to watch. He has been explosive. He's been disruptive, and that's what Oregon's needed. They've needed players to step up, and I really, you look at the first two games for Oregon, and obviously those didn't really go the way they wanted to. Yes, you still won, but not by the margin that you wanted to. And injuries had a lot to do with that. Injuries had a lot to do with the struggles they were facing, specifically on the offensive line, which kind of has affected, Jordan James and his production. But also, this offense hasn't really hit its stride until you saw the Ohio State game. That was the first game where you thought, okay, Oregon's ready to go. They're locked and loaded. They have everything in place. And they still had to face, injury concerns. Jordan Birch wasn't playing that game, so other guys had to step up. So Uiagalelei had to step up. Harmon stepped up. You had so many players that were ready for that moment. And that's one of the things that could be terrifying about Oregon. And maybe this is why they're a 21.5 point favorite, because they've been dealing with adversity and they've found ways to create depth. They have found ways to play despite losing some of their key players. They are tough to beat. And when they are playing at their peak, they are very efficient, they are very explosive, and maybe that's enough to help them win by 20 plus points. We'll see. Illinois is very tough. Oregon is very good. Both teams have been really fun to watch for different reasons. And I think that if you doubt Illinois like this, then you probably are going to be set up for failure. But at the same time, Oregon is really good. It feels like they might be hitting their stride. And if that is the case, this is going to be a 20-point win. Either way, though, this is going to be fun. It's going to be entertaining, and I'm excited to see who comes out with a win. Does Oregon stay undefeated, or is Illinois going to find a way to give them their first loss?